Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to another episode of the Mysticism Decoded podcast. I am your host, Aleph Lev. In this episode, we're going to continue on with the audiobook and analysis of the gateway process. And then I have an interesting study to share with you guys that correlates to this part of the document having to do with energy healing and light healing, Reiki healing. But let's get back to the document, and we're going to cover today C, D, and F. E, I feel, is a little out of place here, remote viewing, which is also the main reason why this document was originally created. So it's super important, and it actually goes better with the next two sections as well, G and F, having to do with the past and future. So we're going to go a little bit out of order, cover C, D, and F today. And this has to do really with self-healing, how you can heal yourself via energy treatment, meditation, and just essentially different protocols that are outside the scope and view of Western medicine, but can be thought of very much as Chinese or Eastern medicine. And if you did not catch my last pod covering the section on patterning, that was probably my most important video to date, describing what patterning is and how it is associated with the creation of the golem of Jewish mysticism lore, which I have submitted to you is not mythology. It is 100% unequivocally real, the science of which is in this document, and I connected it to the golem in the last video, which was episode 15. So I highly recommend that you guys check that out. Extremely, extremely important stuff. But all right, let's get into today's pod, starting with section C, color breathing. The next technique is called color breathing and is designed to use the expanded awareness and highly focused attentiveness associated with the Focus 12 state to imagine various colors in a particularly intense and vivid manner so as to use them to resonate with and in turn to activate the body's own energies. So again, Focus 12 is a certain level of, let's say, the speed of your vibrations that you were able to raise them to a certain speed. Then now you've crossed the Focus 12 threshold. It's a higher threshold, obviously considering that there's a Focus 1. Then it does go into the Focus 20s, but 12 is still rather high. And by imagining colors intensely, it is a tool to help you focus your energy. So let's keep that in mind as we go forward. Fundamentally, in terms of practical application, it is a healing technique which is designed to restore the body and to enhance its physical capabilities by balancing, revitalizing, and retuning bodily energy flows. And remember, our body is made of energy at its smallest constituent parts. We're talking about atoms. So atoms are energy, our bodies are energy. If you watch my previous pods, you know that everything is confined energy versus what God is, which is energy in a state of infinity or unconfined energy. So what we're really talking about is treating energy with energy. It is predicated on the principle that the body's electromagnetic field is capable of altering its resonance pattern so as to entrain energy from the Earth's electrostatic field for its own use. And we talked about this concept in previous pods as well, where you're able to essentially resonate with the Earth's electromagnetic field, and then you have access to all the knowledge that the consciousness of the earth is privy to, and the consciousness of the earth is privy to the consciousness of the solar system. So we're talking about quite a vast consciousness. The various colors envisaged in the imagination as part of the technique cue the mind as to which frequencies and what specific amplitudes are desired in connection with this entrainment and the subsequent alterations in bodily energy flow patterns. That color has the capacity to affect the human mind is well known, and the effectuality of color in certain kinds of healing is a demonstrable fact. For example, application of an intense blue light to an area of physical tumescence leads to relatively rapid and easily observable reduction in the swelling, while red and to a lesser extent yellow have quite the opposite effect. So if you've ever been to a certain type of doctor, you might have already had this done, maybe a physical therapy practice, but the concept of light energy being used to treat a specific injury or illness, it is something that it's not super mainstream, but even that is within Western medicine. However, in the hemisync application of the technique, external light sources are not involved, but rather the mind is the sole agent of the healing and revitalization. So we're not using external equipment here. We are performing self-healing by focusing on colors intensely within our own mind. And it is really a tool to basically funnel your energy for a specific purpose. All right, let's move on to section D, energy bar tool. Magic wands and enchanted scepters have been part of the folklore and occult practices of many cultures. So you've seen this throughout history. Just think about the famous Disney cartoon Fantasia, where Mickey is basically a sorcerer's apprentice. The sorcerer takes a break, goes away. Mickey starts playing with the scepter, puts on the sorcerer's robe and hat. And if you've never seen Fantasia, you should definitely YouTube it, because it's one of the best cartoon musical scenes ever scripted, produced. It's absolutely enchanting and amazing. And the artwork and the creativity is just, it's not even something that you get from today's cartoons. You know, it's like they say they don't make them like they used to, talking about older cars. I feel the same way about cartoons. They don't make them like they used to. And Fantasia is definitely on that list. The scepters, staffs, and maces carried by monarchs and high priests alike occur with such frequency in the history of bygone eras as to suggest that at the very least these items are aspects of some type of archetypical symbol, which the human mind seems to appreciate, perhaps quite subliminally. So I'm going to call an audible on this. I'm going to add something. In ancient lore, where we see things like magic wands or tools, I'm going to submit to you that oftentimes in the ancient times, this was actually technology, as in remote controls. And of course, if you've been following my work, or if you've seen my earlier pods, you know that my work takes off from the ancient astronaut theory, picking up where Zecharia Sitchin left off, where he was super focused on the Bible, and other people that are involved in ancient astronaut theory are focused on its connection to the Bible, which of course is important. But I am starting from the point of the extra biblical books, the books of mysticism, Kabbalah, Merkava, specifically of Judeo-Christian mysticism. But of course, books of mysticism from other religions are applicable, where we are talking about the Elohim are actually the race known as Anunnaki, and are a separate, distinct entity from the God who is the creator of the universe and everything in it, which there is another Kabbalistic term for, which is called Ein Sof. In Hebrew, this means no end or infinite, infinite energy, infinite consciousness, infinite creativity. And what I submit to you is infinite speed of vibrations, which allow for a state of all potentiality, being all things in all places at all times, and all knowing and eternal, whereas we are confined energy. Anything that exists in the universe that has individuality and form is energy that has been confined. As such, it is not in a state of all potentiality. It has form, individuality, and as a byproduct, location. And this is why we are separate from the infinite consciousness, the Ein Sof consciousness God, yet we are all still a part of God. As in, we are confined energy, he is infinite energy, but there is only energy to begin with. And I go into further detail on this in multiple of my previous pods. You can check them out as well. They're all basically described accurately in the thumbnails and descriptions, and you can pick your favorite and catch up. Okay, in any case, the energy bar tool technique involves envisaging a small, intensely pulsating dot of light, which the participant charges in his imagination with enormous energy until it is virtually pulsating. The participant then extrudes the dot into the shape of a sparkling, vibrating cylinder of energy, which he then uses to channel force from the universe to selected parts of his body for purposes of healing and revitalization. So this is the same idea really as the previous section, and they're both just tools to help funnel your energy for a specific purpose. So one way is offering you to envision colors. Another way is offering you to basically create a scepter in your mind, so to speak. But they're both the same idea of we're just coming up with tools to help us focus and funnel our energy, aka force, for a specific purpose. And the purpose we're talking about is to heal your body, whether you have illness or injury. Okay, so I said we're going to skip section E. We're going to do that in the next pod with the other sections G and H, but F is more applicable for today. So let's continue with living body map. This technique provides amplification for application of the energy bar tool as a means of healing specific areas or systems of the human body. The configuration of the participant's body is imagined, and then the various major systems, such as the nervous and circulatory systems, are envisaged in the appropriate colors within the confines of the outline being held in the imagination. The energy bar tool is then applied to energizing, balancing, and healing in whatever manner the participant desires. In the process, the participant visualizes various streams of colored energy flowing out of the tool into the organ system or area upon which the revitalizing or healing application is being made. Since colors are the result of differing wavelengths of light, which is to say energy at various frequencies, this technique operates on the assumption that as the human body is composed of energy, it can be vitalized and healed through the adaptive application of additional energy, provided that the energy is applied in the appropriate form. So this is what I spoke about earlier, that we are really treating energy with energy. Our body is energy. We are treating it with energy. And just as in we understand that different colors are really just various frequencies, if we are able to know and figure out what specific level of energy is needed to basically counteract or treat a malformity, then we can heal it with the energy. So let's say you have a tumor, and a tumor is operating at X energy, and in order to reduce and eliminate the tumor, we need to hit it with Y energy. Then that's what we're really talking about, treating problem X with solution Y. And the problem is energy in a specific form, and the solution is energy in a specific form. So in today's parlance, we hear of energy treatment mostly in the term known as Reiki. Now, Reiki, it's the same idea as what we just discussed in treating yourself, but whenever you're able to apply these energies, you can also do it for other people. Now, based on what we just read, we understand that this is a real phenomenon. The problem in society is, one, it is suppressed. Two, it is not studied very much in depth. Three, if someone claims that they are able to do it, it is not really possible to know beforehand if they are telling the truth. At best, you can ask for references to other people that they've treated. And if those other people are a reliable witness and they confirm that their treatment led to a reduction or elimination of their illness or injury, then you could trust that provider. But it's not as if they can get a license by a federal or state recognized facility the same way a doctor gets a license to practice medicine. However, it is real. We know it's real from the document. If you've been following my work and you understand that we live in the imagination of God, this is a reality composed of God's imagination crystallized into dense physical form, and anything is possible, similar to a digital computer simulation, which is what smart people who are not spiritual think. But it is equivalent to that, although it is not that. But if it can be thought of and conceived, then it is possible. So what I have here for you guys is a study from the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health from April 2021. The title is Perspectives, Measurability, and Effects of Non-Contact Biofield-Based Practices, a narrative review of quantitative research by these 4 scientists here who look to be as if they are not from the United States. It looks like we have Portugal and maybe Germany here. But what I'd like to do is to read the abstract for you guys, and then to read the conclusion as well. So let's start with the abstract. Practices such as Reiki, therapeutic touch, healing touch, and external Qigong have been regarded as some form of energy medicine or biofield therapy. The biofield concept has been studied and debated by researchers of distinct areas of expertise, and although the phenomenon was sometimes described as physically related to electromagnetics, other factors such as subtle energy and focused intention, this is really at the heart of what we discussed in the sections in the document, might be involved. These non-conventional practices integrate contact and non-contact techniques, and those dealing with so-called distant healing interventions are perhaps the most difficult to understand and accept. So this is referring to that Reiki can be performed remotely, technically. It doesn't even need to be in person. They are able to essentially treat you from anywhere else in the world just by focusing their intentions on you. And again, we are talking about a highly skilled Reiki practitioner here, someone who would be the real deal. Practitioners describe these so-called non-local interventions as involving intentional factors and particular states of consciousness, which we saw in the document that they are referring to this as focus 12, and we assume up. With a spiritual mindset in a particular state of awareness, compassion is said to work out as a catalyst to produce physiological and physical changes through mechanisms that are still unknown. Well, in this article, they are unknown. In the CIA document that we just read, they are known. At the body level, these vegetative changes might be related to individual self-perception variations as part of the body neurovegetative feedback system of regulation. Further mechanisms are difficult to document and measure and might be more accessible to research by using physical signal detectors, chemical dynamic methods, detectors using biological materials, detectors using living sensors, and detectors using the human body. I'll add to this that I saw a video on a Greg Braden channel that he basically showed there was a treatment center in China where there were essentially 3-4 Reiki practitioners working on a patient at a time, and the patient had a tumor, and they were showing the tumor on a camera as the 3-4 practitioners were essentially chanting and focusing intently that the tumor already is gone, this is already done. So essentially the mantra is something along the lines of, the tumor is gone, the tumor is healed, this is already done, as in they already know it, they already believe it, it has already been completed. And in real time on the video, on the camera, you can see the tumor actually decreasing in size and ultimately disappearing. I would have liked to have shown you guys that clip, but I could not find it again very quickly, and I wanted to shoot this video. Perhaps in the future, if I can get a hold of it, I'll replay it for you guys. But that's basically what we're talking about here. The power of thought and funneling energy for a specific purpose, the purpose being to heal an injury or illness. And tumors specifically are mentioned that they can be healed even in the earlier parts of the gateway process. So to see this on a Greg Braden video, it aligns with the document perfectly, but it's also quite astounding. Just imagine, for example, how much disruption this would cause to Western medicine, big pharma, hardware makers, chemotherapy providers, if the practice was known and it was allowed to blossom and grow, that tumors and cancer could be treated essentially with Reiki or energy or thought. It would ruffle a lot of feathers. So when you think about and you wonder, why is this suppressed? Why does Western medicine not dabble in this nearly at all? It really comes down to money. Now, with Trump winning the White House and appointing Robert Kennedy Jr. as the HHS leader, we know that Robert Kennedy wants to basically change the system here of big pharma working with big food, where they purposely put unnecessary, unhealthy ingredients to make us sick. And then we need big pharma's medicine. And then their prescriptions that are provided to fix one thing cause 3 other things. And it's just a circular theft of not only your funds, your wallet, but it's a theft of your health. And if you really start to think about that, this really turns into a massive, massive criminal organization, not just from a financial perspective, but a spiritual perspective as well. And suffice to say, the human species has a lot of room to grow, a lot of room for improvement. The growing interest in these practices and the considerable amount of research exploring their effects and clinical applications encourage this narrative review, which aims to provide an easy-to-consult partial overview of the history, theory, and findings of quantitative research strategies exploring non-contact biofield-based practices. This work also aims to stimulate the reader's mind with the raised hypothesis, catalyzing further research on the subject to confirm or deny the reported outcomes. And if you're watching this video, you know we're doing it to confirm. All right, so that was the abstract, and let's shoot down to the conclusions. I'll put the link for this article in the description as well, in case anyone should want to read the entire thing. But for the purpose of this video and to save time, let's just head down to the end here. Okay, conclusions. The human biofield is a challenging concept that is not fully compatible with the dominant biomedical paradigm. The mechanisms behind this phenomenon are still unclear or unknown. Like I said, it's unknown to them, but we just read in the CIA document why it is, so I'll argue that it's not unknown, it is quite known. However, some experimental results and clinical applications support rather than deny its existence. So even here in their conclusions, they're telling you that they've confirmed that the phenomenon is real, thus justifying further studies about its nature and action mechanism. Nevertheless, there is still some stigma related to this subject and much anecdotal evidence lacking scientific methodology, contributing to some resistance to accepting this concept into mainstream scientific research. Yeah, the stigma is if people know that they can heal themselves for free with thought, that's going to bankrupt a lot of big companies. The literature on the subject is still weak. Some references are not readily available to consult, and some are only written in Chinese. Because like I said, although Western medicine shoos this away, in Chinese and Eastern medicine, this is much more accepted and practiced. Evidence-based approaches are required to assess the effectiveness of these practices and concepts. In this context, well-designed studies with proper controls and standard procedures are required to ensure quality and reproducibility. The fulfillment of these requirements is a challenge to research, as a high number of variables might have an impact on the study, such as the practitioner's background, the number of practitioners involved in the study, the type of biofield therapy, the duration of focused intention intervention, and the frequency of biofield therapy during the experimental period. The field of research requires in-depth scrutiny and clarification, as there are still many question marks. Biggest question mark is, why isn't it being studied more in Western science? And we know the answer to that. Considering the healer a crucial element in the healing process and the supposed source of driving force and biofield activation, what kind of physiological changes occur in these subjects? Often measured biomarkers include EEG, heart rate variability. However, EEG changes seem inconsistent and not specific to biofield therapies. Baldwin and Hammerschlag found that HRV results suggest an activated physiology for reconnective healing, Bruyere healing, and Hawaiian healing, but no changes were detected for Reiki and therapeutic touch. Well, I'm not sure what else they're describing differs from Reiki, but we know from the CIA document and even just what they're describing overall that this is really all Reiki anyway. It's energy treating energy. Are these results due to the biofield practice itself or due to the practitioner's experience and particular abilities? Here, a parameterization effort similar to the one seen in TCM diagnosis and practices is imperative to calibrate the healers and healing process. Recently, Connor reported a set of portable and cost-effective measures that scientists could use to determine the competence of energy practitioners so that the qualified practitioners could be selected to improve research accuracy. So this is what I brought up, that it's tough to know who is the real deal and who is essentially a grifter. The only way to really trust who's treating you is if you have reliable testimony from prior clients, which is also going to be tough to get. Plus, how do you know that they were really treated by them? So it's tough to know beforehand. It's almost as if you just have to roll the dice and see if this practitioner backs up what they claim. Because at the moment, there is no state or federal institution to license and verify for you that these practitioners can do what they claim that they can do. Those measures involved the use of triaxial extra low frequency magnetic field meter, data logging multimeter, radio frequency field spectrum analyzer, acoustimeter, broadcast frequency counter, digital pH meter, digital dissolved solids meter, gas discharge visualization, and physiology suite including heart rate variability, galvanic skin response, respiration, EMG, EKG, temperature and blood volume pulse. The expected results from proper experimental designs may contribute to the debate and help understand the possible effects and involved mechanisms. If you're a doctor in the medical field, you probably appreciate this last sentence much more than an average person, because you would understand really the power of their measurements. Future studies should be planned in an integrated manner involving academia and research institutions, the healthcare community, and therapist associations to explore aspects of fundamental sciences and the clinical applicability of these practices. Further research on this subject should include the effects on electrophysiology and homeostasis, the assessment of changes in physiological and physical variables, the test of non-locality character of the intervention, and the eventual entanglement within the system, and the demystification of philosophical terminology, such as the circulation of ki or prana in meridians or nadis, in TCM, this is Chinese medicine, and Ayurvedic medicine, respectively, the energetic fields of dantians, known as chakras in Ayurvedic medicine, or even the layers of the human energetic field, commonly referred to as the person's aura. A particular emphasis should be given to research exploring the effects of intention and its relation to the biofield. For example, Chinese medicine holds that Zhu, similar to blood, is moved by the qi and guided by the yi, the intention of Shen, which is mind. Therefore, the activation of the qi flow depends on the practitioner's particular mental state of awareness, which triggers the manifestation of vegetative physiological changes, such as the increase of microcirculation and changes in the electrical potential of the skin. So this is just like the Greg Braden video I described to you, where the practitioners in deep focus together focused on the same thing and reduced the tumor on the spot, which was in fact recorded. As these changes have been measured during Qigong practice, how do they relate to the biofield? Measurements of biophotonic emission from the human body, particularly the hands during Qigong or other biofield-based practice, will be helpful to understand whether this physiological response has power enough to trigger changes. For example, in biological material placed in the vicinity of the practitioner. Additionally, measurements of the magnetic field properties in well-controlled conditions during the interventions might be valuable to check if the eventual changes are assessed systematically and if they support space conditioning hypotheses associated with intentional factors. Here, the use of water as a sensor and the evaluation of its properties by vibrational spectroscopy might help determine if the intervention has effects not only in the experimental space, but also in target and non-target materials within that space. Few studies have been published in this field, demanding more investment and research to confirm or deny the reported outcomes. We already know it's confirmed. We know from the CIA document, we know even from things that they mentioned in this article, and we know that there are entire philosophies and health practices that are prevalent in countries such as China and India based on energy healing. So it's only unconfirmed in Western medicine that wants you to essentially be sick and injured so that you can be treated by big pharma medicine and hardware and surgery, because it is a game to withdraw your cash from your pocket. I hope you guys enjoyed today's pod and found the information helpful. If you are someone who is indeed suffering from an illness where Western medicine has not been working for you and you've been trying it their way for quite a long time, you should look for the following type of practitioners, even in America, if you can't go to China or India. But one, you can start with a holistic doctor who focuses on Chinese medicine and supplements. And then you can find a practitioner of Reiki or Qi or Ayurvedic medicine for energy healing. And like I said, it might be a little bit of a crapshoot finding the right one to begin with. Maybe you have to go through a couple to find the real deal. But if you find them, it's well worth it. And holistic medicine, it's not even something that you have to take on faith. It is much closer to Western medicine, except that it focuses on supplements as opposed to prescriptions that come with their own set of side effects and cause new problems while they fix the original one. Holistic medicine for sure changed my life quite a bit, something I'll talk about in a future pod. But if you're taking one prescription or two prescriptions or more for any sort of ongoing issue, could be an autoimmune issue or similar, find a holistic doctor. Have a conversation with them, listen to what they have to say, try it their way. Prescriptions are going to give you different issues in the long run. It very well can cause you organ failure, heart issues, things like this. That's not how you want to go out because of organ failure, because you stayed on Western medicine for 20 years. And all you needed to do was speak to a holistic doctor a couple of times and play with supplements, amino acids, things like this. So if you liked what you heard here, just like everyone else asked for, please like, share, comment, subscribe. This is a new channel and I'm looking to get the word out. It's always a great gift to share the nature of reality with a friend or a loved one. Plus, this is applicable to literally everyone in the world. The ability to heal yourself, heal injury, heal illness with the power of thought. All the more reason to get involved in meditation and study this discipline and science. In the next pod, we're going to pick up with the section we skipped today, remote viewing, and also cover G and H, which are going to get into deeper depth on why it is that remote viewing works and why it is that we can see into the past or future. And this is going to correlate with certain aspects of my book as well, Connect to Source, which if you did not hear me on prior pods, the book that I wrote, it connects this document, the Gateway Process, to the first book of Kabbalah, the Sefer Yetzirah in Hebrew, the Book of Creation in English. And I tied together the enigmatic, poetic ancient Hebrew and translate it to align it with what we are told in modern English from the Gateway Process. And the Sefer Yetzirah tells us about the genesis of the universe and the creation of the golem. And again, my last pod, episode 15, covered the creation of the golem, which is going to be part 1. I'm going to cover it in more depth when I start covering my book. But section B of advanced techniques, which we're still on here, section 30 is advanced techniques, but this is section B of section 30. I submit to you that the science for creating the golem is laid out here in patterning. It is not folklore, it is not mythology. The golem is 100% unequivocally real. If you never heard the word golem, this is a term from the Torah. It is mentioned in other books of Jewish commentary, the Talmud and Gemara, that the golem is a soulless humanoid automaton brought forth from the ether, essentially brought forth from the nothingness, via essentially thought or meditation. And although 99.9% of the world thinks of this as essentially just fake or mythology, it is 100% real. It would not be in the Torah if it were fake. And the Torah is the Old Testament, if you're not familiar with the word Torah. So I highly, highly recommend that you check out my last pod, episode 15, covering patterning. It is one of the most important aspects in the world because it indicates and implicates that our reality is God's imagination crystallized, and we are able to perform feats of manifestation via thought, which go on to confirm and prove this theory, but theory is not really a strong enough word. I rather say this fact that our reality is God's imagination, confined energy, with the energy vibrations lowered enough to be dense and physical. So I hope you guys check that out. And thanks again for joining me on today's pod. Till next time, we pick up with remote viewing, which is the program that this document was initially commissioned for. This is the psychic spying program that the government had on the public ledger for 30 plus years before it went into black ops and off the public ledger. But if you think it's not going on anymore, I got a bridge to sell you. And it gets into the concept and idea of being able to remote view anything in the past, present, or future. And that obviously provides implications that the past, present, and future all happen simultaneously. So why do we experience time moment to moment in our reality the way we do? I talk about this in my book as well, how the fourth dimension of time is essentially connected to the fifth dimension. And this fifth dimension, a description of which I submit to you, is provided in the Sefer Yetzirah by the word sipur, the Hebrew word sipur, which means to inform. And I submit to you again that I am the only individual currently on earth to translate this as it is meant to be translated, where we understand that the fifth dimension governs or informs our fourth dimension of time. And the reason we experience things linearly as we do is because our fourth dimension sits at the heart or middle of the fifth dimension. And again, I got into this in greater detail in my book, and I will cover it in greater detail once we conclude the Gateway series. And we start with the series on Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Creation, and of course my book, Connect to Source. There's a link in the all links description for my book as well, which is available on Amazon. And I look forward to doing that all with you guys. But until then, thanks again. Aleph Lev out.